So what was I going to talk about?
A cause is not singular.
What?
A cause is not singular.
A cause is not singular. What does that mean? Cause. This causes, I've used this example over and over. It's a wonder I haven't broken the glass. Cause is not cause, effect. It's not singular. Cause is not singular. So if this, even though this causes that, the attribution that we present to ourselves about something solidifies our self-centeredness and other-centeredness. It solidifies this for that, solidifies this against that, or solidifies this as who cares. So what I'm trying to present here using that idea is that when you see anything, this causing that or this has happened because of that, be very careful not to lock down on just that cause because that cause is not singular. It's multiple. And you can't count the number of things that are behind any apparent event. An event is not singular. If I do this, everybody's eardrums vibrate. So there's lots of things happening. Just an example, but it's all over the place. Anytime you do anything, it's called karma, or the translation, of course, of that word karma is action. Sanskrit word. So what we're endeavoring to do is to strengthen by meditating, sitting down, holding still, prioritizing the awareness over the things that arise in the awareness, which takes a while because when we sit down and hold still, we tend to grasp at or reject or ignore what arises in awareness. And this strengthens the thinking process rather than what? The awareness process. The process of becoming more and more clear about what this is. So a cause is not just that. Because we want to get control, we tend to lock down on who did that. We tend to lock down on praise and blame. And the traditional teaching is not something I invented. It's just something that I also understand is in Buddhist teachings, no praise, no blame. There's no praise, no blame. It's not that you can't appreciate something, of course. It's not that you can't depreciate something, of course. But no one really fundamentally gets any credit for anything. If you're born with a beautiful voice, people might, oh my God, you have such a wonderful voice. They might compliment you, but it's really just a description. There is no one to compliment. And if you puff up slightly, that's where your self-centeredness is. As I've sometimes said, sometimes I've picked people I like to pick on here, there's a few of you here, I will go after you and say, I'll show you where your ego is at. I'll just criticize you, even if I'm making it up, even if it's a stage play. Everything's a stage play, by the way. Move off the stage into the first row. Watch what's happening. This is what sitting meditation is about. It's about slowly, not aggressively, but gently, moving back away from the events that appear as parts of your life. Your story, your cinema. Excuse me. It's always about, it's always about awareness. It's not about controlling things. Please. Please and thank you. Stop trying to control things based on your limited understanding of where the controls are at, where the buttons, the off switch, the on switch, all the tensions that are going on about any given situation is multiple. So relax, sit down, hold still. waste time, and from the point of view of ego, waste time. Because fundamentally, the whole idea of time is a misunderstanding of what this is. You're not being timed by anything. I'm not saying your body's not going down, but if you identify with this, you're going to suffer. It's going to be difficult. And it's going to get worse as you get none of you are my age, but if you get close to my age and you don't understand what this is, it's going to start to get frightening from the point of view of you're going to want to shut down. I'm sure you've all met grouchy old men before. Or self-centered or opinionated. People who are extremely opinionated are just protecting that center, that very soft center called me, and my stuff, my ideas, and who's for me and who's against me. Seems to be necessary for you to transcend that self-centeredness. If you're in this room, then that's probably something, might not describe it that way, but something you're interested in doing. All evidence is partial. Anytime you can point to anything and say, it's because of that. It's just circular, it's a misunderstanding, and it just creates not only more suffering for you, but for those around you, for everybody, for your offspring, for your homies. It's still okay to say that word. The words are changing so much, I'm not sure what. I know some things you can't have vowels in anymore. We talked about that. Take the vowels out. We don't need vowels.
Offspring?
Huh?
Offspring?
Obspring?
Offspring, that word?
Does that have vowels in it? So, the idea with the partiality that comes up, the self-centeredness of the ego, or the seventh consciousness, however you want to talk about it, it tends to want to secure its ground, its territory. It wants to be somebody who is winning, or it'll even settle for somebody who's losing. It just wants to be somebody. Because if it does that, then it gets to blame all the reasons why it's not getting a fair shake. There is no fair shake. Fair and unfair, misunderstanding. We're not saying that pain and pleasure are the same, but they get their meaning from the same area. It's the same nerve endings, whether they're in any one of the six sense fields, including the mind, or including wherever you want to put the mind. So the idea there is to bring, as a meditator, sit down, hold still, and train yourself to see clearly by watching what comes and goes without adding, subtracting, or dividing. Don't do anything with it. Don't make any comment on it, adding, passion. Don't criticize it, judge it, threaten it, aggression. And don't distract yourself, look away, or go on vacation. And when I say that, of course, I know you can't help but do one of those three or any combination of those. But so it's not about so much, even though I'm saying don't do that, I can't do that, so I know you can't do it. But I know that if I say that it will bring your mind more to the way in which you keep checking out or going here or settling for handguns, settling for some kind of way of dealing with it. So it's not about the control idea is a misunderstanding. We see it all over. It's all over the place in any kind of discipline. It's all over the place in Buddhism. Big misunderstanding. Excuse me, about control and about how forms show up. The idea that forms need to be followed or rules need to be followed is a profound misunderstanding. We need to use those and see those with intelligence so we understand, because everything that's arising around that is never going to be just like it was last week. There's no way you can apply this to that, and come up with a formula where you can just block everything out, and anything that time that happens, just apply the formula. Don't set up standards. It says this in the sutras. I can't remember which one. Anybody remember? Sandokai. It's so easy to, when something occurs, to jump into that with a lot of ideas about it, opinions, analysis, explanations, because we want to control, we want some kind of say-so about what's happening to us. So we kind of settle for any level of control, something that just masquerades as having a say-so or having an idea, or, well, at least I'm doing this, well, at least. How many times do you use that? Well, at least wasn't born a baboon. Whew. At least that didn't happen. I mean, because it could have. Baboons are great. I like them. I've known many baboons. Teenagers. I don't know many adult baboons. But they didn't have any choice about being born a baboon. We don't have any choice about being born a human being that we can remember or recall. I'm not saying there aren't some people that aren't promoting some kind of a idea that you choose your life and you choose. I'm not denying that, but I'm not promoting it. What do I promote? Sit down, hold still, watch what moves. That's what I promote. You don't have to join Buddhism. It's very hard to do this if you don't have some kind of a structure. We have a monastery here, so that if you're here, you get to practice long hours that you would never do in a conventional way of living in a house, having a job, going to the store. And it's set up that way intentionally, so that people can see more deeply who and what this is. And see more deeply who and what that is. This and that. We get caught up in this and that because it's so intense. Relationship between two people is so intense, whether it's complementary, whether it's everybody's holding hands and getting along, or whether it's polarized and going the other way and we're having some kind of warfare about things. And when anything happens, there's always the blaming situation. Happens both directions, both giving credit to something, someone, and also blame to something, someone, some situation. If you have questions, you're welcome.
What's the difference between doing nothing with what arises and controlling something?
Doing nothing with what arises, what's arising, is just to watch what it's doing. Watch it move this way, move that way. If you look at anything that's any of your experiences are showing up, they don't last. They morph, they change to go this way, they get stronger, they get weaker, they change the shapes. And so the other part of your question was, what's the difference between
watching what moves and doing nothing with it, and trying to control something?
Controlling something is to assume that what you see is all the evidence you need to move forward and do something. Something shows up because of hope and fear, because of some kind of panic on a lower level. You might not even be consciously aware of it, but there's just that impulse to cover that up or make that go this way. Or even you might even say, well, I'm not putting up with that. You ever said that? I'm not putting up with that? That is a cover-up of what could have. You just missed your Dharma gate. Anything that's coming to you, my friends, can I call you that, my friends? Anything that's coming to you, my friends, is a Dharma gate. I'm not saying you deserve it. That's a misunderstanding. I'm not saying that it should have happened, or I'm not saying anything about it other than it is an opportunity for you to see deeply the truth of who you are, what this living being is, what it is to be a living being. The understanding here that if it comes up for you is profound and vast. Profound because it's completely extraordinary and beyond any imagination you may have, and it's vast in that it's unending. And at the same time, because of non-duality, because of not two, it is also flat out ordinary. Especially if you're just a person sitting in a room trying to decide whether it's time to make lunch or not. Very, very simple, ordinary situations are profound and vast. This does not mean you're going to have a feeling that it's profound and vast. That's what's called a feeling. A feeling about something is not the thing. And to make it even easier for you, it's also not the thing. See how much easier that is? Shoshi.
Is the discipline here to just observe? Is this what you're recommending?
Unless it's me, in which I get to talk. But it comes from doing a lot of observing. So I'm observing the way people may need some help in seeing how to do that. So that's what I'm doing there. But yes, the discipline is basically just observe, just receive. I just gave several talks. How many talks have I given on just observe? 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8. How many?
I think 8.
8. So when I get to 12, then the next talk after that will be 13. Yes. Go ahead.
What becomes of discipline?
What becomes of discipline?
Well, it seems that it changes in a way that the practice is expansive, and I'm just curious how you could talk about that.
How it changes?
Well, yeah. For instance, when just observing becomes your natural state.
Okay, what's the question? I follow you.
Is that
different?
No, that's not the word I was thinking.
I'll wait for you.
Well,
You want to reflect on it a little while before you ask? Okay.
a little bit. I'm just curious. Where does that? What becomes of that discipline? I mean, at some point, the raft gets left behind. So
it becomes as soon as you understand, realize, not just understand intellectually, because intellectually we know people. We've had 2 scholars in here, Bruce and Bill Waldron, lecturing. These gentlemen understand intellectually better than I do what this teaching is about. So, but to realize it, all of that just collapses. Everything collapses into what? This. There isn't any. There's no one here. There's no one there. And it's not a feeling. It's not even an insight. It's just a tacit understanding that you don't do anything with anything anymore. You may, and it's very ordinary. Shara.
What makes control feel real?
A success and failure. If you succeed, it feels real. If you fail, it feels real. If you fail at controlling, you try to control something, you can't. But it feels like you really failed at controlling, so you got to get better at controlling. But if you succeed at controlling, then you get notches in the handle of your staple gun. More?
Something's coming up. I don't know what else.
Okay. Yeah, it's good.
What is cause that is multiple?
So simply put, there's different ways of explaining it, but if there's one person who does something, the cause that is multiple, meaning that person did not invent themselves. They came from two parents, and also the area that they're in. There's weather that's happening there. There's all of the things that happen. The education, just to be very simple-minded about it, the education that the person has, the anything that happened 3 minutes ago that got in the way of that, whatever they're about to do, could have changed a lot just by something else that happened that was, you could say, unpredictable or unbeckoned or summoned, and it suddenly happens to them. So therefore, you take any situation, and you can see that this causes that, and it's very simple. And we need to understand that when there's grasping, there's going to be suffering. So that's the Buddha's message. First and second noble truth. Pain because you want something else. It's very simple, but it's very complicated in that it isn't like you can go and say, well, there's 4 more things that are to blame, and whew, we're done with that. Finally, we got to the end of it. So that's like, arresting a gang because they're all in on some terrible crime. There's a little bit of that happening, but there's not. The example I often use is I go into prisons, and some of the other monks go into prisons here in the state of Michigan Department of Corrections, and you meet people there. I met a fellow there who went into prison when he was 15, 16, and his mother and father did not take care of him. They were drug addicts. And so he was left, he didn't have a family, so so a gang took him in, and then he got involved in crimes. He was very young, and he's in prison for, when I met him, he'd been in close to 20 years. And just, causes and conditions are happening. He stumbled into the Dharma and been working on that. So you can say, you could even say, well, that wouldn't have happened to him if he had a better mother and father, or you could say that, but you could say, well, he wouldn't have, if that hadn't happened, then he wouldn't have stumbled into the Dharma. And so, you're never going to find first cause or right and wrong are just there. That's the ego will settle for right and wrong. Who's right and who's wrong? I have several students who are tied up in right and wrong intensely. It's not something you can do away with. You can't stop that, but you have to see that you're doing it. If you see that you're doing it, it may slow down, it may speed up, but if you see that that's happening, it's called awareness. Don't go to war with anything. If you fight with anything, it will fight back. Even if it's unreal. If you fight with phantoms, they become very solid and real. You just have to see that it's there, it's unreal. It's like sitting in the first row of the theater. You just watch the play, and you're not going to be able to control that situation. But you can see very clearly what it is, and you call it a little bit of control by saying you're not fueling it anymore because you're not picking sides. You're not going for right and wrong anymore. Even though someone, something, some situation is obviously terrible, everybody would agree with you. Anybody you'd explain it to would agree, yes, that's horrible, you've been wronged, you've been treated terribly, you didn't deserve that. That's a lot of help. It's a Dharma gate for you. Whatever's happening to you, your worst situation that's happened in the last week, take another look at it. Don't figure it out. Please don't figure anything out. If you're listening to me, there might be other people who are going to tell you other things. They're all over YouTube. Go ahead. Come and see me someday. If I'm still around. Yes?
What is the difference between looking at a situation and figuring out?
Looking at a situation is you are willing to actually not separate yourself from the situation by calculating. You're actually willing to, I never use this word, rarely use it, but it's like surrender to it. You're just willing to experience it, see what it is. You're willing to look in it, get your hands dirty and your nose full of foul smells. You know, to go in and look at the situation, be that. Be that. You know, it's like when you understand what this path is, you'll actually invite the difficulty, because you'll see it as a way of understanding yourself deeply. The whole world is suffering. Why should you shut out your little tidbits of suffering? You actually have the luxury of being alive, and if you're in this room, you're probably fairly healthy. Things are happening in your life that you don't like, or other things are happening you do like. And I'm saying, you know, if you're on this path, then this is the path of the Bodhisattva. Put others before yourself. I'm probably the most self-centered person you've ever met. I'm one of the greatest geniuses who has ever lived. Somebody else said that first. I guess I can't say that. I'm just saying the identity is just, you can do all kinds of things with it. It comes and goes. It might seem fancy and it might seem flat. It might go this way and go that way, you don't have to do anything with who you are. You don't have to get rid of your ego. It's unreal. Once that is seen thoroughly, completely, without a doubt, it's called the torch of certainty. You see it. It's that much illumination. It's completely, you see it. You don't doubt anymore. You may have doubts, but they're not about that. It's more like doubts about whether you have enough gas in your tank to get to Montreal.
Is difficulty that we receive less difficulty someone else has to receive?
So I don't know how to ascertain that. What's the basis of your question? What are you trying to find out?
You said something about inviting in difficulty. I'm wondering if that's taking difficulty from someone else.
Maybe. But the important, just be very direct about it. Don't get wound, even though you're a smart guy. Description, not a compliment. You know that. It's a description. You're a smart guy. Don't get drawn back into your ability to sort things out and figure things out. It's a tunnel, and it's dark, and you're lighting it up with your intellect as you go down in it. But it's circular. I'm just waiting for you at the other end. More?
How can I include my
Say it.
want or ability to do that without shutting down on it?
Just see it. You don't have to change. You don't have to be someone else. You don't have to correct yourself. There's nothing to correct. This is the teaching of Dzogchen teaching of Longchenpa. Everything is perfect as it is. It doesn't mean there isn't suffering and war and pain and all kinds of things happening. But you as an individual being have to realize the truth yourself. Realize it yourself and the war is over. This doesn't mean that people next door aren't fighting and that you might have to take in some refugees, or all kinds of other things could happen. Those will just happen within the context of whatever you're in, whatever the milieu that you're in. You'll operate as part of that rather than some other person who should do it or shouldn't do it, or is going to do it or isn't going to do it, or picking and choosing. No more. If you realize what this is, you'll never make any more decisions. Everything is obvious what to do. There's no either or anymore. It's gone. You either do it or you don't do it, and you don't have thoughts about should I do that or shouldn't I do that. Unless we live with Youll, and then you have to kind of. She kind of does that a little bit, so you can't separate yourself from her. So you have to do what she says. Yeah, like, don't have the big rhubarb pie piece, have the little rhubarb pie piece. So I did. I did the little one. Joseph.
What is the relationship between no causality and tendency or probability?
So, paraphrase that. You're coming across a little bit, but I'm not sure what the basis of your question is.
Well, I took classes in sociology, and they tend to push this idea that there's things that tend to happen, or difference between Newtonian physics and quantum physics is that they don't say this always happens. They say, well, this is likely to happen, or it tends to happen. I'm wondering if that's more observational, or is it more covering up?
I don't do multiple choice, nor do I do true and false. But I can respond to your question in this way. The labyrinth that is tying both of those disciplines up is a belief, an unexamined belief in time and an unexamined belief in space. They think things happen in time and space. So if you just think that that's the truth, there isn't anything but this. There is no 10 minutes from now. There is no 10 minutes before this. I'm not saying there's not a physical situation that isn't functioning perhaps in that way, but even that is suspect. More? I realize I didn't answer your question, but you can ask it again.
You might have.
Whoa, I'm starting to get excited. I might have answered
when I
that.
drink my mate, I tend to feel a certain way.
Yes, cause and effect. So what's the question?
How is that shutting down on observation?
It may not be. If there's anything extra, it's you drink that and you tend to feel a certain way. That's the shutting down came from you telling me about it. If you want to nitpick around it, no expression beyond what happens. Something happens, no expression. You follow that a little bit?
I think so.
It's just that. It doesn't lead to something else. As Dogen said in the 13th century, firewood does not become ash. Firewood is firewood, ash is ash. You have a question?
Sokuzan, how can causal relationships seem to function so well if there's more going on?
There's just this is happening, that's happening, this is going smoothly, and this is going smoothly, but nothing lasts. So it will have its other dynamic. It'll be sunny. It's like if it was always daytime. If the sun never, if there were two suns or something, and we never knew about it being night. That's the answer.
Just not as clear as my question.
No. It's actually the same as your question. It's not separate from your question. So the understanding that is being encouraged from this person, from this direction, is to find this, see who you are, sit down and discover this yourself. It is not something else. It is you. It is your mind. Your mind is this. You are not separate from what I'm talking about. What I'm endeavoring to point out to is, this is why it is said in the Zen tradition that everything is mind, or mind is Buddha, like it says on the calligraphy. It's basically saying that consciousness is awake. There isn't, nothing is sleeping anywhere. Yes?
Is there an expression that's not extra?
If it's happening, if I understand your question, if it's coming out of the causes and conditions with no motivation to get ahead or not fall behind or manipulate what's happening, but to just, the word is sometimes said, just dance. You know what it's like to dance? Do you dance? There's no music, so. But, you know, you have a movement, you just dance, you just move with, something is moving. If you're going to dance with someone, you would get your cue from them. You know, it's like you get your cue from the world around you. Not with the idea of manipulating them, although some people are doing that. Some people are watching others and seeing their weaknesses and jumping in and trying to extract some kind of value which is always imputed, like money. It's paper. Go ahead.
Does knowing something prevent us from responding authentically?
Give me an example.
Just something to pull out, like knowing how to work on a certain car prevent you from working on another one if it's set up differently.
A little bit maybe, but you mean like working on this and then making that a formula to apply it to everything? Sure, if you're doing that, but if you're just working with what's arising, then you don't get caught up in the formulaic understanding. Just like if you come in here and do these sutras over and over and over hundreds of times, which some of you have done, you see there's no way you can repeat it. There's no way you can do it. No way you can do it correctly. There's no way you can even do it the same way each time. There's a different person. There's a different situation every time. Everything is the same and different. Sandokai. More?
And how is just observing and being a spectator? And also, if karma is action, what's the relationship between all those?
The relationship is actually, ultimately there is no relationship. But as we're looking at it relatively, then it's a harmony of sameness and difference. There's no joining, no refusing, no grasping, there's no functioning happening from the point of view of someone operating on something else. It's just harmonious. Wasn't that a great answer? It's a good question.
It's time.
Time for what? It is. Kiyun, go ahead, take one more. His is really easy, his question.
Is confusion harmonious?
Yes. I told you it'd be. Of course it is. And you notice when I answer that, I'm not being flippant. I mean, but immediately when I hear that question, I don't have to think at all. So see now, Kiyun's asking this, and what is his particular style of insanity? Let's see. So I have to look at that, and he needs a particular answer. But I can also say, if someone else would ask me that, I might respond differently. I don't plan anything, so I don't really, but it's not separate. So the way in which you ask that, yes, it's different. See how fast that changes? It's both the same and different, so I can respond either way, as long as where I'm coming from, or the way in which I'm responding to that is genuine. And you actually put you could say, give me the benefit of the doubt by even sitting in this room, and I don't create this, you create this. If no one came, I wouldn't come up here and invite people on my phone. Why isn't anyone coming to listen to me? I have so many important things to say. Thank you so much.
We'll stand and dedicate the merit in the back of our yellow chant books, and I would like to remind everybody about the donation boxes in the hallway. We always appreciate and depend on your financial support to help us continue these teachings.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji-ho san chi shi fu chi son bu sa mo ko sa mo ko ho ja ho ro mi. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all their monastery. Our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors, heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.